The question of whether or not God exists is a common question that many people ask.
Yeah, just like how if 90% of the people in your society believed in unicorns, you would ask them if unicorns really exist.
And the existence of God is one that is heavily debated between believers in a higher power and skeptics and atheists.
Weird way to put it. Skeptics and atheists. Aren't atheists, by definition, skeptical of the claim? Skeptic atheists are a distinct group. Maybe by skeptic you mean agnostic? But as it is, your way of putting it is odd. Either way, I agree. It is debated heavily by Christians and atheists. Muslims and atheists, even.
And many times people who don't believe in God will ask for hard evidence for his existence.
Just like how if you don't believe in unicorns, you'd probably ask for hard evidence of the existence of unicorns. Especially if 90% of the country you live in deeply believes that unicorns exists, and that if you disagree you deserve to burn in hell.
And they'll challenge Christians and tell them, show me proof and I'll believe.
Which is obviously reasonable, rational, and expected. Yes, we require evidence to be convinced you are correct.
And to be honest, Christians can't give hard evidence that God does exist.
So then he probably doesn't exist.
However, just because believers can't show God physically, it doesn't mean there aren't any good reasons to believe in God.
Okay, the question wasn't, can you show me the physical proof of God? It was, can you give me evidence of God? I don't need to see God's face. In fact, I hear it will kill you unless you're one of the people in the Bible that doesn't apply to for some reason. I just want proof. The same proof that gravity exists or that English is related to German and Dutch.
So in this video, I want to cover 3 reasons why people can believe in God.
That is also not the question. It isn't, how can you believe in God or why do you believe in God? It's, can I see any proof of God?
However, I should mention that these arguments should not be abused. For example, many people can enter into a debate of sorts and have the mentality to win and will refuse to listen to the other person and will only look for moments to make the other person look stupid for their lack of knowledge.
If only every other theist was like you. I guess there wouldn't be any theists around in that case.
Even now as I write, I know many people will watch this video with the mentality to prove all these reasons for God's existence wrong. And they'll show it in the comments.
Okay, well, you are presenting a claim in public and giving reasons for that claim. Just keep it to yourself and you wouldn't get comments or reply videos. I respect when people keep their religions to themselves. It's still stupid, but I respect it.
And that's honestly fine. But know that if you're a Christian, know that these 3 arguments that I'm about to cover are meant to promote discussion and to get people to consider that God may actually exist.
I have considered it many times. I'm not making videos, listening to, and then responding to theists because I haven't considered it. These videos aren't me plugging my ears and going, la 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 la, I can't hear you, la 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 la.
So should you use them, be humble about it.
How can you be humble about the claim that you're in touch with the infallible word of the creator of the universe, who can never be wrong about anything?
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching our videos, and if you haven't already, please don't forget to like and subscribe.
Yeah, like and subscribe to my stuff. Don't do it to theirs, or you can if you want, I guess. Also consider joining my Patreon and my Discord. Also buy my tapes. That's a Zakir Naik joke.
Also, I recently made a new design for some of our shirts and sweaters. With our Infact logo, I attached the Japanese phrase chotozutsu, which is translated little by little. So if you'd like one, or if you'd like to support us in this way, you can click the link in the description below.
Instead, you can go to my shop at... Oh wait, I don't have one of those. Join my Patreon?
We'll get back to the video in just a sec. First,
A sponsored segment in my cult propaganda?
Argument number 1, the creation argument.
Please don't tell me that this is the same as the cosmological argument, or the design argument. Not today. I'm not tired enough for this shit.
This argument is also known as the cosmological argument.
You had to rub it in my face too, by name dropping it 2 seconds later.
And while I could go through the argument in detail, where I go through each premise, I think it's better to explain it in a way that you can use it in a conversation.
Don't use the cosmological argument in conversation. You're going to get laughed at. It's such a bad, overused argument.
And if that doesn't make any sense to you, that's fine. All you need to know is that I'm going to break down this argument simply because you don't really need to know the premises unless you're in an actual debate.
Hold on. Aren't premises the foundations of arguments? This is premise 1, this is premise 2, this is premise 3, this is evidence 1, this is evidence 2, this is evidence 3, therefore conclusion.
So the creation argument essentially states that everything that begins to exist must have a reason for its existence.
This isn't really the argument. This is premise 1 of the argument. That's what I mean. The premises are the foundation of the argument. An argument is literally impossible without at least one premise.
So since that's the case, we as people should also have a reason for our existence.
That's also not the argument. Not as it's usually said anyway. The argument goes, premise 1, everything we see has a cause. Therefore premise 2, the universe must have a cause. Therefore premise 3, there must have been a first cause. Therefore conclusion, God made the universe. Therefore conclusion, God exists. It's a really bad, bottom of the barrel type of argument. But it is the argument.
So this is the way it works. Everything that we see has a cause for its existence.
Oh, so now you're going to actually make the argument. Okay, well then, I'll respond the way that I normally would respond.
For example, we can look at a building and we can safely assume that there were architects and construction workers that were responsible for making it. On top of that, paintings come from artists, dishes come from chefs, and forests come from seeds, and mountains come from the Earth's tectonic plates moving. So the idea is that all that we see needed to have some kind of cause, and our universe isn't any different.
Why? Can you provide any reason the universe isn't any different? So let's say that the universe needs to have a cause, and God caused it. What caused God? If everything needs a cause, including the universe itself, then God also, by definition, needs a cause. You can't say that everything that is X by necessity has Y property, and then say that something in X does not have a Y property. X cannot necessarily equal Y, therefore something in X does not equal Y. It must by necessity.
According to science, our universe is expanding, and if it's continuously expanding, then if we were to rewind time, there had to have been a point in which everything started.
In which entropy started, not in which the universe started. That's what theists seem to not understand about the Big Bang. It says nothing about the universe having a beginning, only that entropy had a beginning.
There had to have been a point in which everything started. So the question is, how did everything begin? And the answer to this question is still a mystery in science.
So let's just shove God in there.
Because we obviously can't go back and observe how life actually began.
What? Did I just hear you right? We were talking about the Big Bang. Abiogenesis is completely unrelated to cosmology. They aren't even remotely similar fields.
So the creation argument pretty much states that because things exist, things like the universe and its galaxies, stars, and planets, and the Earth with its land, seas, and people, then something or someone had to be responsible for its existence.
Right. And therefore Yahweh, because I said so.
And while people may argue and say, well, maybe the universe was just always here. To that, I'd say that the universe expanding is proof that our universe isn't infinite.
Why? How is that the conclusion to the universe expanding? Could it not have been a tiny little speck for an infinite amount of time before the Big Bang?
Because it all had to start at a single point in history.
Why? Again, you're just assuming based on the fact that entropy had a beginning.
Because from what we know and observe from the universe, that's the most logical conclusion we can come to.
What's true of the part is not necessarily true of the whole. Your car could have a red steering wheel, and that doesn't mean the whole car is red. Everything in our universe could have a cause, and that doesn't mean that the universe itself had a cause.
So if the universe and everything in it seems to have needed a cause or reason to exist, then God or some higher power seems to be the only explanation that makes sense.
Who caused God? Even if we grant all of this, it still can't be the God of the Bible because your premise is that everything needs a cause and Yahweh is said to have no cause.
And I know some people will say, you Christians look at the unknown and turn off your minds and credit the unknown to God. At least scientists are out there observing and trying to figure everything out.
Weird way to point out a God of the gaps fallacy, but sure. That's essentially what we say, with some dramatization.
You know, back when I was in college, I sat in one of my friend's classes, and JP Moreland was the professor, and he taught his class something interesting. And he stated that the origin of the universe is outside the realm of science.
A person has an opinion. Wow! That's just bound to insta-convert anyone who hears that.
And the reason why is because science is based on the scientific method, or in other words, it relies solely on us making observations of the world around us.
I've heard that argument. Actually from my dad regarding the Big Bang as the origin of the universe. He doesn't agree with the Big Bang, for some pretty valid reasons if you ask me. I don't know that I agree with him, but I think his reasoning is really solid. But that doesn't give you an excuse to shove God in that gap. Christians have played this game for the past 2,000 years. Find a hole, shove God in it. Science always seems to come along and say otherwise, and then they take credit for it and find another hole for their God. Maybe cosmology is outside of science, but that doesn't mean you just get to play your little games.
So due to the fact that time, space, and matter all began at a single point in time,
Still don't have any proof of that.
a point in time that no one can go back and observe,
Due to the fact that ancient Rome existed at one point in time, a point in time in which we cannot go back and observe, that means that Jupiter is the god of the sky, and we should celebrate Saturnalia. Romae Eternal.
science then cannot answer the question of how the universe began.
Just because we can't go back in time doesn't mean we can't know anything about history. Even very ancient history, things we can only interpret, we can be fairly confident about. It's not perfect, but it works.
So Morelands, the professor, then asserted that the question of how the universe began should actually be answered in the realm of philosophy, not science.
Okay, fine. I love philosophy. Moral philosophy is my jam. Natural philosophy is really cool. But philosophy is not religion. Philosophy changes, has rules, has axioms. Philosophy is more like science than religion in every way that counts.
And I thought that was interesting. For me personally, if someone were to tell me, "You're just turning off your mind and crediting the unknown to God," I'd respond, "I'm not turning off my mind. I just think that a higher power that is greater than time, space, and matter can only be responsible for creating the universe that we observe today."
And that belief is completely unjustified. Also, this only gets you to a deistic God, not a theistic God, and certainly not to the God of the Bible.
Do you have a better explanation on why everything exists today? Because if you do, then I'd love to listen and I'm willing to learn.
The universe has always existed, the universe loops infinitely, the universe formed from some natural process beyond our understanding, etc., etc. Not necessarily any that I believe, but better or on par with the belief God did it.
So if you're watching this and you're someone who does not believe in God, I challenge you and ask, how do you think we all came to exist?
Evolution by natural selection. If you mean the origin of the universe, I don't have an answer, and I personally don't need an answer so desperately as to shove God in the place of a real one.
Because I think there needs to be some explanation on why we all exist.
Because you think there needs to be one. Because you are so desperate for an answer that you shove God in the place of one. That's a you problem, not a me problem.
And I think that God creating everything seems the most likely and logical.
Oh, really? The Bronze Age war god of the Jews. He seems like the most likely and logical. Have you read his book? It's full of disgusting murders, conquests, genocides. It's full of contradictions and lies. It's just factually inaccurate. Try reading Genesis. It's just wrong.
And if you're a Christian and you're wondering how to use this argument in a conversation, you can simply ask people, where do you think we all came from? And how do you think the universe began? Because it did not just pop into existence, something or someone needed to have caused it.
Why? Are you going to provide any explanation as to why that has to be the case?
And if they argue and say, well, how do we know that? Things can just pop into existence, and that might be the case for the universe. To that, I'd probably say that we don't observe things popping in and out of existence freely in our day-to-day lives.
We also don't observe black holes in our day-to-day lives, or evolution taking place on a noticeable scale, or the erosion of rocks to form canyons, or the making of cell phones, or the production of movies, for most of us at least. And so, do these things just not happen then? The very smallest things that make up electrons and protons are still being researched. It's still a very young field, known primarily as quantum mechanics. Maybe some things do just pop out of nowhere. We've observed other such behavior that is completely opposite of what we observe on a macro scale.
So if that's the case, there needs to be a cause for the existence of our universe.
And therefore that cause is God, because I said so.
And should people ask, well, who created God then? To help with that question, you can watch our video titled, Who Created God?
No, I won't. It'll be the standard bullshit Christian apologetics about how God doesn't need a creator because I said so. Obviously, if he says so, it must be true.
Argument number 2, the design argument.
These are still the best arguments Christians have to offer, and they are still steaming hot piles of cow shit.
This argument is also known as the teleological argument. And in the same way that I skipped explaining the premises for the creation argument,
No, you just stated the primary premise as the argument itself, then rephrased it. You can't skip building the floor of your house.
I'll also skip that here, because the goal for this video isn't to prepare debaters, but to help Christians understand these arguments so that they can better be used in a conversation.
The goal here isn't to arm our community to have honest, open, free debates about important topics in society, but to enable devout cultists to continue to spread their cult. How pleasant.
So this argument pretty much states that complex and intelligent design must come from an intelligent mind or designer.
Can I skip this one? If I end the video here, will anyone actually be upset with me? I don't want to repeat the same 5 things over and over again to the same old, sour, repeated, stupid fucking arguments again.
So let's look at the complexity of people.
The complexity honed in from evolution by natural selection. Evolution is a fact.
And I cover this in our Is There Really a God video. And in it, I talk about how within a single person, they have a cardiovascular system, an endocrine system, a digestive, respiratory, excretory, lymphatic, nervous, muscular, and skeletal system.
All evolved over millions of years of evolution, primarily from random mutation and natural selection.
And on top of that, according to the National Institute of General Medical Sciences, the DNA from one of our cells is 6 feet long. So if we were to uncoil all of the DNA from all of our cells, it would amount to being 67 billion miles long.
Okay. Are you gonna get to the point?
And to give you a better idea of that length, we could take 150,000 round trips to the moon with that much DNA, and that's just the DNA of one person.
Oh, DNA is really long. Therefore, you can't work on the Sabbath.
So the design argument would suggest that a person is too complex, and evolution could not have been the reason why people exist, regardless of how many billions of years occur.
Millions of years. And no, evolution is a fact. The theory of evolution is our description of the fact. You can't deny evolution, just as you can't deny gravity.
For example, it would be nonsense to think that a laptop in a forest got there by evolution.
You really are going to deny evolution. Why not just propose the flat earth next? Nobody believes in a tornado in a junkyard. Nobody believes in a laptop evolving out of something else. We know that humans make laptops. Now show me the evidence that gods make humans.
Because even if all the necessary parts of a laptop were in an area, and that area was untouched, and nature just had its way for billions of years, a working laptop would not be the result.
How could a tornado in a junkyard make a Boeing 747? Therefore, God must be real, because I don't understand science and I don't want to even try.
Yet many people who believe in evolution use this line of reasoning for people.
No, we don't. You're either lying or you're misinformed. You're either a con man or a conned man.
And they'll suggest that the building blocks for people were in an area, and over time, an organism formed, and from that, it kept evolving until we got to people.
Okay, so life arose somehow, then it adapted to be better for its environment, then it eventually adapted into being multicellular, then into being animals, then into being mammals, then into being monkeys, and then apes, and eventually humans. This is evolution by random mutation and natural selection of traits. We kept getting better for our environment until we became humans. Denying this is like denying the way the Earth formed. Not that you wouldn't.
And I do want to add that I do find a lot of credibility in evolution within a species. Like Darwin's finches, for example. Finches do evolve over time, but they don't become anything other than birds.
They will eventually. Dinosaurs became birds, and something else became dinosaurs. You are making a distinction between micro and macro evolution. No such distinction exists. Birds can become not birds. It's just a matter of word choice, really. We call wildly different species from wildly different clades in wildly different environments that act in wildly different ways and look totally unlike all birds. How does a penguin really look like an ostrich at all? Eventually a penguin might become fully aquatic. We might not decide to call it a bird anymore, in common speech anyway.
And we do have wolves that mate with lesser violent canines. And evolution can create a bunch of different types of dogs. However, they stay dogs.
But didn't you just say that they came from wolves? So they didn't stay dogs. They were wolves and then became dogs. See, it's just a matter of word choice. Birds and reptiles are dinosaurs. We just don't say that because of word choice. We are monkeys, but we don't often think that because of word choice.
It's evolution that turns species into other species, like fishes turning into birds and birds turning into dogs, that I would disagree with.
Fish didn't become birds. Not like that anyway. And birds certainly didn't become dogs. Let's take the humble blue whale. It looks nothing like a land mammal. But if you look at all the individual steps, you see, oh, hey, that makes sense. Oh, hey, that makes sense as well. And eventually you have a blue whale before you know it. The little deer-looking thing called Pakicetus and the evolutionary process makes total sense when you look closely. Fish becoming birds makes sense when you look at all the individual steps, but characterizing it as just some large, arbitrary leap obviously doesn't.
And the reason why is because in our fossil record, I don't recall seeing much of any transitional species that were in the middle of evolving.
I don't understand evolution, and I have to protect my kids from understanding it. We will not give in to the thinkers.
You people are as loud as you are ignorant.
So going back to the argument of design, complex and intelligent design requires a complex designer.
May I have some proof?
So when you look at the complexity of people and all that makes up a single person, this kind of complexity had to have come from some higher power.
You are just wrong. Evolution is a fact.
So if you're someone that doesn't believe in God and you think that evolution makes more sense and that people did evolve, I would challenge you to think of a time when life can come from non-life.
Abiogenesis is not evolution. These are different things.
Or in other words, if evolution did start everything and the world started with a bunch of non-living things that people ultimately evolved from, can you think of another time when life was able to emerge from something that wasn't alive?
I don't want to live on this planet anymore.
Because if that's not the case, then where did life begin?
I don't know. Therefore God done it.
You could say you just don't know.
But instead you should just shove God into it. Instead of being humble and patient or trying to find an explanation, instead you can shove God into the gap.
But I think that the most logical explanation is life coming from some originator of life.
Like chemicals forming into proteins and nucleic acids, forming the basis of RNA, DNA, and protein chains, leading to organisms, leading to us.
And I would call this originator of life God.
Oh, yeah. Well, I call him Shkwolmornd, Dwulag, the great destroyer of the 9 realms and the 18 worlds. Now bow down before the mighty Dwulag and praise him for his mercy in sparing your world and your soul from the infinite torment of his destruction and wrath.
And if you're a Christian and you're wondering how you can use this argument in a conversation,
don't use this argument, especially not as it's presented here.
I would encourage you to ask a lot of questions on what someone believes regarding the complexity of life.
I agree. In fact, I'm questioning someone right now on what they believe about the complexity of life.
And I'd say something along the lines of, people are incredibly complex. Where do you think we came from, and how do you think life started?
Your parents, and I don't know how life started.
In my personal podcast, Practical Christianity, I interviewed my friend who works as a chemist, and I asked him what his view on evolution was. And he told me that as a chemist, he works hard to make sure that the chemicals he creates all have the correct measurements. So if his chemicals and complex compounds that he makes all require intelligence, he thinks that since the world and people have so much more complexity than the chemicals he makes, it only makes sense that a mind of greater intelligence is responsible for creating it.
Well, both of you should learn more about evolution. Interesting how you didn't ask a biologist about it. No, you asked a chemist about it. That's like asking a watchmaker where buildings come from, and he goes, I don't know, therefore God.
And argument number 3, the moral argument.
This is the worst of the worst. This argument is so bad that's not even worth addressing. None of these arguments are worth addressing, but this one doesn't even deserve the acknowledgement that it exists. I'm going to respond to it, but I'm not happy about it.
This argument pretty much states that because people have universal laws that they all abide by, it's evidence of God.
Oh, so throwing gays off of buildings and strapping bombs to your chest? These are your moral opinions? Oh, they aren't, but Muslims do it. What about gassing subway stations and shooting people? Oh, but Om Shinrikyo did it. What about raping your daughters and threatening to kill your son? Oh, but God commands it in the Bible. If there is an objective morality, I'd wager it has nothing to do with religion.
Because he had to give people these laws. To explain it more, murdering babies, purposefully polluting water reservoirs, and other crimes like rape are wrong.
Yes, they are subjectively wrong. If everyone knew that they were wrong, then why do some people do them? If these were things known to be wrong by everyone, then they wouldn't ever happen.
And while that seems obvious that they're wrong, the question is, why do we think they're wrong?
Because it's beneficial for a social animal to evolve to think doing certain things to fellow tribe members is wrong. And we extended our tribe out to encompass everyone on the planet. I mean, do you really think a society could operate if everyone ran around killing and raping each other?
The moral argument suggests that these moral laws can't develop from a purely biological world.
Do you have any evidence for that?
And that these morals need to come from a higher power or God. And the reason why is because if there was no God and we were purely biological beings, then we'd be no different than animals.
We are no different from animals. In fact, we are animals. We are literally animals. I'm sorry that doesn't make you feel fuzzy inside. I'm sorry if that makes you feel insulted and lowly. I don't care. We are factually animals.
Because lions can kill gazelles, and dogs can go have sex with other dogs without their consent, but lions don't murder gazelles, and dogs don't rape other dogs. They're just acting like animals.
And we can kill cows and eat them, or keep dogs and cats in our homes without letting them leave, and we're not killing or kidnapping, because we're just animals acting like animals.
So to really think about this argument, we need to consider why we as people think that things are wrong.
Because we as people think that things are wrong. Not that God thinks that things are wrong, or that we were told to think that, but that we think that things are wrong. Because of evolution, because we evolved compassion, empathy, love, care, society, because it was more beneficial to your ancestors to hunt together, to sleep together, to live together, than to hunt alone, sleep alone, and live alone.
Because if we truly did believe that our world was purely biological, then we couldn't say that what Hitler did was wrong.
Okay, well, I do believe the world is purely biological, and I do say what Hitler did was wrong. Not objectively wrong, but I do find it repugnant and disgusting, and I don't want to see anything even slightly resembling it occur again. Hitler was a Catholic who believed in objective morality handed down from God, by the way.
And according to the Holocaust Encyclopedia, Nazi Germany did not just kill Jewish people. They also killed black people, gay men, people with disabilities, and their political opponents.
Yes, he also killed Romani, immigrants, and communists. Is this supposed to make him even more bad? Is trying to eradicate the Jewish people and starting a global war resulting in millions dying not enough? I already agree Hitler was bad. Adding more bad things to the list of things he did isn't going to make me believe in objective morality.
So think about this. If morals were not given to us by God, then the rules we have as a society would be subjective.
Yeah, they are.
Meaning, what's wrong for me may not be wrong for other people, and we could then respectfully disagree.
And we do, all the fucking time. Have you ever talked to a Muslim who can't eat pork and been like, man, why don't you just have some? And he's like, I can't, it's morally wrong to eat pork. I can't believe that you are. And you're shocked by this, and then you just agree to disagree and move on? Entire books have been written about moral philosophy. Entire fields like ethics are dedicated to it. This is something that people respectfully disagree on all the time. I wouldn't respect an idea that Hitler wasn't wrong, but that doesn't mean I can't respectfully disagree with other moral ideas.
But this moral argument suggests that there are things that we can't respectfully disagree with. Like, we can't respectfully disagree with Hitler. What he did was morally wrong.
Okay, but I can respectfully disagree that eating pork or eating beef is wrong.
But if we lived in a purely biological world, I'd argue that we couldn't say that he was wrong.
We could. We can. We do say that he was wrong. But we couldn't say he was objectively wrong. That's the key word there. That if no humans existed, that it would still be wrong. Because without other humans, well, it wouldn't be wrong. If we all got wiped out today, no one would be around to say Hitler was wrong.
Because he was just doing what was right for him.
But we can still say that he was wrong. As long as subjects are there to observe his actions, those subjects can say that it was wrong. It's just that there is no objective wrongness about it. It's up to the subject, the viewer. We as a society have decided that it was wrong. Unlike what we do with Joshua, or Moses, or Jephthah, or all the other cruel and terrible warlords of the Bible, who genocided entire civilizations, entire ethnicities just for, what's the word? Living space? For God's chosen people? Oh, where have I heard that before? Huh.
And people could argue that objective moral values could emerge from a society, but if objective moral values did begin within a society, how would we know which moral values to defend?
That is complete nonsense. Clearly those objective morals would be based on the subjects of the society. It would be subjective morality.
Because different moral values could technically arise that contradict other ones.
Right, so your assertion that everyone knows some things are wrong is clearly false, by your own admission, which goes some way to discount your argument for objective morality.
So how do we know rape is wrong? And if it is wrong, then how do we know it should stay wrong?
I don't know. Ask God. Is it one of those days where raping a woman results in forcing to be married to her, or one of those days where raping a woman results in your death?
I don't think the idea of objective moral values developing within a society answers this question. So all that to say, the moral argument states that because we have moral values that all our societies hold, values such as not murdering and raping people, it's indicative of some higher being giving us those values.
I want you to imagine a society where everyone ran around raping, murdering, and stealing. Just imagine it for a second. I want you to imagine what would happen in that society. Not how you would feel about it, but what would practically happen to the society. What life would be like, practically speaking. It probably wouldn't be very good, would it? It'd probably collapse pretty fast, wouldn't it? No one would be left alive, would they? No one would own anything, would they?
So if you don't believe in God, I would challenge you to think of where your conscience came from. Like, you have a sense of right and wrong. So where did that come from?
I have been molding my morality for like upwards of 5 years now. I realized one day that I think killing a human is wrong and killing my dog is wrong, but what about a deer? What about ants? And ever since then, I've been pretty much against any form of killing anything alive. Plants, animals, even bacteria. Obviously, food and illness are different, and stepping on an ant on accident and these sorts of things, I'm not quite Jainist. But my point is to say, my morality comes from my education in my youth, my family and school, and from that I grew my own moral beliefs. If morality came from God, this would be unnecessary. I would just know what is right and wrong, but I grew my morality from the seed planted by the people around me when I was little.
And why is it that humans are different from animals, and why can't we just kill and have sex with whoever we want to?
Humans are animals. We can't kill and have sex with whoever we want to because people would be upset with us. So we made laws so that we can punish people who upset us in that way. Are you a psychopath or something? Would you shoot up a place or rape everyone you saw if not for the Bible?
Because I think that the best explanation for why we have this innate sense of right and wrong is because God put inside all of us a conscience that sees and holds universal and moral laws.
Well, he did a pretty shit job, didn't he? Thank you for watching to the very end. If you liked it, please consider leaving a like and sharing. If you really like my stuff, consider subscribing. I would like to thank my editor Shane Gott and my patrons who are on screen right now. There's a Discord in the description and you can find the Patreon on my channel. If you have money to spare and you really like my stuff, please consider joining the Patreon. I have a $1 tier and a $3 tier. If you join the Discord and the Patreon, you get exclusive access to a channel for just patrons. You also will get videos early, and you can support what I'm doing. The most support that you can give is to continue to watch my videos to the end, and to hit the subscribe button and share with other people. Thank you, and have a good day. Due to the fact that ancient Rome existed at one point in time, a point in time in which we cannot go back and observe, That means that Jupiter is the god of the sky and we should worship. That means that Jupiter is the god. I'm mad. I'm mad. I am angry. Due to the fact that due to the fact